In the hills and valleys of Ireland, there exists a sound that freezes the blood of anyone who hears it. Not a roar, not a growl, a scream, a wail. A keening so filled with sorrow and despair that it pierces straight to your soul. And when you hear it, you know with absolute certainty that death is coming. This is the cry of the Banshee, and she doesn't kill you. She simply tells you that you're going to die. Imagine you're in rural Ireland centuries ago. It's late at night. Your family is gathered by the fire. Outside, the wind whistles through the hills. And then, you hear it. A woman's voice, carried on the wind. But this is no ordinary cry. It starts low, mournful, filled with such profound grief that it makes your heart ache. Then it rises, higher and higher, becoming a shriek of pure anguish that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Your blood runs cold, your breath catches. Because you know what this means. The Banshee has come. Someone in your family is going to die.
Subscribe to my channel Folklore Horror if you don't want a Banshee to visit you.
If you look outside, you might see her. A woman in white, or sometimes gray or green. Her hair flows long and wild, often red or silver white. Her face is pale as death itself. Sometimes she's young and beautiful. Sometimes she's ancient and withered. Sometimes she appears as all ages at once, shifting and changing. Her eyes are the worst part, red and swollen from endless weeping. When she looks at you, those eyes hold centuries of sorrow, all the grief of every death she's ever foretold. Some say if you meet her gaze, you'll see your own death reflected in those weeping eyes. She doesn't speak. She only keens. That's the Irish word for the ritualized wailing at funerals. Her voice carries across miles, through stone walls, into your very bones. You can't escape it. You can't unhear it. Sometimes she appears washing burial shrouds in a river, scrubbing bloodstains from cloth. The identity of the dying person is revealed by whose shroud she washes. Sometimes she's seen combing her long hair with a silver comb, weeping as she does so. Sometimes she simply stands at the edge of your property, keening into the night. But always, always she brings the same message. Death is coming. Not today, perhaps, not tomorrow, but soon, very soon. Someone you love will die, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. The Banshee, Banshee in Irish, meaning woman of the fairy mound, is not a killer. She's a messenger, an omen, a herald of the inevitable. And in traditional Irish families, especially the old Gaelic bloodlines, her appearance was taken as absolute fact. When the Banshee wailed, you prepared for a funeral. To understand the Banshee, we must understand Irish attitudes toward death and the role of women in mourning traditions. In ancient and medieval Ireland, death was not something hidden away or sanitized. It was a community event, accompanied by specific rituals. One of the most important was keening, a formalized vocal lament performed by women at funerals and wakes. Keeners were often professional mourners, women who were paid to attend funerals and perform elaborate vocal laments. But the best keeners were family members, especially older women who knew the deceased. Their keening told the story of the person's life, expressed the family's grief, and helped guide the soul to the afterlife. The sound of keening is haunting, part singing, part wailing, part sobbing. It follows specific melodic patterns, but is also deeply emotional and personal. When done powerfully, it can make even strangers weep. The skill of a great keener was valued and respected. The Banshee represents the supernatural version of these keening women. She is the ultimate mourner, weeping for the dead before they've even died. Some scholars believe the Banshee legend evolved from actual keeners, perhaps women who had an uncanny ability to sense when death was near or whose reputations became mythologized over time. But there's a deeper layer. The Banshee is one of the Aos, the fairy folk of Irish mythology. These weren't cute Disney fairies. They were powerful, otherworldly beings tied to specific families and places. Some were benevolent, some were malevolent. Most were simply alien, operating by rules humans couldn't fully understand. The Banshee's connection to certain families is crucial. She didn't wail for everyone, only for members of old Irish families with Gaelic surnames starting with O or Mac. The O'Neills, O'Briens, O'Grady's, McCarthy's, and others each supposedly had their own family Banshee. This tied the Banshee to Ireland's clan system and ancestral worship. She was, in a sense, an ancestor spirit, forever bound to a bloodline, mourning each death as a personal loss. Her wailing wasn't just a warning, it was grief. Genuine, devastating grief for each family member who died. This made her both terrifying and strangely comforting. Yes, her appearance meant death was coming, but it also meant your family was important enough to have a supernatural guardian. It meant you wouldn't die alone and unmourned. Even if no human could keen for you, the Banshee would. Irish tradition describes several different forms the Banshee can take, each with its own meaning and implications. First, the washer at the ford, an Pean Nige. She appears as a beautiful young woman in a green dress, washing bloody clothes in a stream or river. This is considered the most ominous form. If you see her washing burial shrouds, you or someone in your family will die violently. The blood never comes clean. In some tales, if you're brave enough to approach her quietly and place yourself between her and the water, you can demand answers. She must tell you who will die and how. But if she sees you first, if she looks up and meets your eyes, you'll be struck with a curse. Some say madness, others say you'll die within the year. Second, the Keening woman, and being Chawent. She appears as an ancient crone, withered and bent with age, dressed in a gray or black hooded cloak. She doesn't wash clothes. She simply appears near the home and wails. Her cries are the most piercing, the most filled with grief. Some accounts say she combs her long silver hair as she keens, and if you find one of her hairs, it's a powerful talisman, but also cursed. The hair never decays, never breaks, and brings both protection and misfortune. Third, the triple Banshee, representing maiden, mother, and crone simultaneously. She appears as all ages at once, her form shifting and unstable. This is the rarest and most terrifying form, appearing only before the death of someone very important or when multiple family members will die together. The triple form is said to keen in harmony with herself, 3 voices at once, young and old, creating an otherworldly sound that drives animals mad and makes strong men weep uncontrollably. The color of her clothing also carries meaning. White suggests a death from illness or old age, natural causes. Gray or green indicates an unexpected death, but not violent. Red or with red in her hair means violent death, murder, accident, or death in battle. Her location matters too. If she appears inside your home, the death will happen soon, within days. If she's on your property but outside, you have weeks. If she's at a distance but her cry still reaches you, the death may be months away. The closer she is, the more imminent the doom. In rare cases, multiple banshees might appear for a single death. This only happens when someone of great importance dies, a clan chieftain, a person beloved by many families, or someone whose death will impact the entire community. The sound of multiple banshees keening together is said to be overwhelming, impossible to describe, unbearable to witness. One of the most well-documented banshee accounts involves the O'Brien family in 1691, recorded by multiple witnesses, including a visiting English gentleman who was deeply skeptical of Irish superstitions. The O'Brien clan was hosting a gathering at Dromaland Castle. The head of the family, Lord O'Brien, was elderly but still healthy and active. His extended family had come from across Ireland for a celebration. On the second night, around midnight, the celebration was interrupted by a sound from outside. A woman's voice, keening. But this was no ordinary keening. It was so loud it could be heard over the music and conversation inside the stone castle. The Irish guests immediately went pale. They knew what it meant, but the English visitor laughed it off. Probably just some local peasant woman causing mischief, he reportedly said. Lord O'Brien himself said nothing, but witnesses noted he became very quiet and pale. He excused himself and retired to his chambers. Keening continued all night. The English gentleman, determined to prove it was a hoax, went outside to investigate. He searched the grounds thoroughly but found no one. Yet the sound continued, seeming to come from everywhere at once, from the river, from the woods, from the very stones of the castle itself. At dawn, the keening stopped. The English visitor came back inside, badly shaken. He later wrote that the sound had filled him with a grief and dread beyond all explaining, as if I mourned for someone I loved dearly, though I knew not who. 3 days later, Lord O'Brien died peacefully in his sleep. He had been in good health with no signs of illness. The doctor could find no cause of death. His heart simply stopped. At his funeral, the Keening women of the family performed the traditional lament, but several of them claimed they could hear another voice beneath theirs, the Banshee, still mourning, her supernatural keen weaving through their human voices. The English visitor wrote extensively about the experience, trying to rationalize it. He suggested mass hysteria, shared delusion, or some natural phenomenon that created the sound, but he could never explain how the sound was heard inside thick stone walls, or how it seemed to come from multiple directions, or why it stopped exactly at dawn. And he especially couldn't explain why Lord O'Brien, a healthy man, died exactly when the Banshee said he would. The account concludes with the visitor admitting, "I came to Ireland a skeptic. I leave with more questions than answers. I cannot explain what I heard. I can only report it faithfully and let wiser men than I determine what it means." The Banshee represents something fundamental about Irish culture's relationship with death. Unlike many cultures that try to hide death, sanitize it, or pretend it isn't coming, Irish tradition acknowledged death as a constant presence. The Banshee embodies this acceptance. Death isn't something that happens suddenly out of nowhere. It's always there, waiting, and sometimes you get a warning. The Banshee also represents the importance of grief. In Irish culture, mourning wasn't something to hide or minimize. It was honored, ritualized, given voice through keening. The Banshee is grief personified, eternal, powerful, and necessary. She specifically represents women's roles in mediating between life and death. In Irish tradition, women prepared bodies for burial, watched over the dying, guided souls with their keening, and kept the memory of the dead alive. The Banshee is the supernatural extension of these vital female roles. Her connection to specific families speaks to the Irish emphasis on ancestry and bloodline. Your family wasn't just the living, it included the dead, the yet-to-be-born, and the supernatural guardians watching over the line. The Banshee's eternal mourning meant your family was never truly forgotten. Perhaps most importantly, the Banshee represents the inevitability of death and the importance of preparing for it. Her warning isn't something you can stop or change, but it gives you time to say goodbye, to make peace, to prepare spiritually and practically for what's coming. In modern psychology, some researchers suggest the Banshee legend might represent a cultural mechanism for processing anticipatory grief. When someone was very old or very ill, the family might hear the Banshee, a psychological experience that helped them begin grieving before the actual death occurred. Others see the Banshee as ultimately comforting rather than frightening. Yes, she brings news of death, but she also brings certainty, preparation time, and the knowledge that your death will be mourned by something ancient and eternal. In a world of uncertainty, that's a strange kind of comfort. In contemporary Ireland, fewer people claim to believe in the Banshee literally. Keening as a practice has largely died out, replaced by modern funeral customs. The old ways are fading, but the Banshee hasn't disappeared entirely. Even today, Irish people report hearing unexplained wailing before a family death. Usually they don't see anything, just hear the cry, feel the presence, know with inexplicable certainty that someone is going to die. These modern reports often come from people who claim not to be superstitious, who have rational explanations for everything else, but cannot explain what they heard or how they knew death was coming. These modern reports often come from people who claim not to be superstitious, who have rational explanations for everything else, but cannot explain what they heard or how they knew death was coming. Interestingly, Banshee reports have followed Irish families to other countries. Irish Americans, Irish Australians, Irish Canadians have reported hearing the keening in their new homelands. The Banshee, it seems, travels with the bloodline. Some Irish cultural groups are working to preserve keening as an art form and ritual practice. They argue it's an important part of Irish heritage, a way of expressing grief that modern culture has lost. These groups sometimes invoke the Banshee as a symbol of what's being lost when old traditions fade. The Banshee has also been reclaimed as a feminist symbol by some, representing female power, female grief, and women's traditional roles as guardians of the dead. The Banshee is powerful, cannot be silenced, and commands respect through her voice alone. She appears constantly in Irish literature, music, and art, often as a symbol of Ireland itself, mourning, enduring, tied to the land and its people, crying out in grief and warning. The Banshee has become a cultural icon that transcends belief in the supernatural. The Banshee endures because she speaks to something universal, the knowledge that death is coming for all of us, the importance of grief, and the hope that we won't die unmourned. In the hills of Ireland, on quiet nights when the wind carries sounds across the valleys, you might hear something. A cry, a wail, a keening that makes your heart ache with sorrows you can't name. It might be the wind, it might be a fox, it might be nothing at all, or it might be her, still watching, still waiting, still weeping for the deaths to come. The Banshee doesn't kill, she simply tells the truth no one wants to hear. Death is coming. But she also tells us something else, that our deaths will matter, that someone will mourn us, that we are part of something larger and older than ourselves. So if you're of Irish blood, if your name starts with O or Mac, if your family roots run deep into Irish soil, listen carefully on quiet nights. The wind might be trying to tell you something. And if you hear her cry, don't run, don't hide. The Banshee doesn't come for you. She comes for those you love. All you can do is listen and prepare, and when death comes, make sure the grief is honored, because that's what the Banshee teaches us. Death is inevitable, but being forgotten is not. Grieve loudly, mourn openly, remember fiercely. The Banshee will do no less for you. All right, before you go, 3 quick things. 1. If this creeped you out or taught you something new, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel grow and lets me keep making these deep dives into folklore. 2. Drop a comment telling me what folklore creature you want to see next. I read every single comment and I'm building a list. Your suggestion might become the next episode. 3. Subscribe and turn on notifications because next week we travel to Mexico to meet La Llorona, the weeping woman who drowned her children and now hunts for yours. Until then, you're not going to want to miss that one. Thanks for watching, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.